was for you.
As aspiring music yappers, it's tempting at the end of the year to try to summarize or contemplate the state of greater music culture. And maybe there is something to be said about how 2025 followed an often seismic, genre-defining 2024. Instead of looking for the next mass cultural event like Brad's Summer or the Drake vs. Kendrick beef, this year seeped back into the general trend of the 2020s. Increased fragmentation in our music consumption and discussion, resulting in this fuck-ass end of year video of ours where a legendary 2000s coke-rap duo is right next to a 19-year-old who made Maplecore, where a Japanese jazz fusion band is right next to a solo Brazilian emo project. But it is that decentralization which makes this attempt at generalizing kinda pointless. For every album that made a statement, there are 3 more just doing their own thing and being casually incredible. For every artist that reinvented themselves or made their debut, there are also artists pumping out factory units of their sound without a trace of their audience growing weary. All we can say for certain is that for all the things that went wrong or are continuing to go wrong around the world, consistently paying attention to new music has been one of our biggest passions. This is Nate.
And this is Zhenya.
And we are bliss.wav. Thank you for tuning in to our year in music.
Before we get into our best albums of 2025 though, we wanted to highlight some late additions to our 2024 favorites.
Cameron Winter, heavy metal. His voice sounds like the halfway point between Bob Dylan and Peter Griffin. What a goofy guy. I have cried several times to this album.
Shoo Shoo, 13-inch Frank Beltram Italian stiletto with Bisson horn grips. This was my introduction to Shishu, and it did not disappoint. It's hard to even describe why this album is great. The riffs, the melodies, the insanity of this music. Long live experimental music, all I can say.
Lucy Bedrock, the Vanilla EP. Since the incredible How to Pretend Rope Me In, this EP's pastel, lo-fi pop songs from another dimension have never come off the rotation. It's not my favorite Lucy release ever, but it sure sounds unlike anything else out there.
Channel Beats, Your Day Will Come. One of my proudest finds this year. They have a very unique style which is somewhat adjacent to the Dean Blunt kind of music in terms of the vibe, but have a huge distinction sonically. This album, however, is short, touching, and beautiful.
Cemetery, Bloody Angel. For a longer video about this album and Cemetery as a whole, go watch my Halloween video. It's good. Thank you for your support.
Mount Kimby, The Sunset Violet. I found this through a King Cruel feature and it turned out to be one of the best albums I've listened to in this genre. God, Fishbrain is definitely one of my favorite songs ever now. It just scratches the itch sometimes, you know?
Sa Baby, Sahin. While the second mellower half is hit and miss for me, the first half of this album is genuinely some of the most fun I've had with rap music. Nobody flows like Sa Baby, and nobody sounds like Sa Baby. Can't believe he's only now on my radar.
Lupe Fiasco, Samurai. One of my favorite concepts for an album probably ever. The bars are great, the production is so fitting for the vibe and the concept of the album, and it's also just so concise and on point. 30 minutes fly by and you don't feel bored once. This is absolute class. Philip Lam, one word, pure class.
And here's where we confess that this year actually feels more stacked than last year, probably due to our expanding tastes. The battle for the top 10 albums this time was fucking fierce, and we at least like every album that ended up as an honorable mention.
So please don't kill us for some of the snubs here, you know?
Rosalia, Lux. With more time, this album definitely could have cracked the top 10. Rosalia is low-key my new obsession, and there is a non-zero chance I'll talk about her in a future video, so I won't say much besides go listen to this shit, it's life-changing.
One Off Point Never, Tranquilizer. One Off Point Never is probably my favorite electronic musician of all time. I love the Uncut Gems soundtrack, I love the Good Time soundtrack. R+7 is just incredible, 10 out of 10. I'm definitely gonna make a video about that. That shit sounds like Space Odyssey if it was a album. And so of course I was hyped for this record. It did not disappoint me at all. The cover art is a painting which depicts a tractor or something, or some like farming machine on a grass field in a very blocky, futuristic way. When you see all of those details, the sound that the album produces really matches with that visual. It sounds futuristic but yet organic, and it's a very interesting fusion of sounds. If you haven't heard this album, and if you haven't heard any of his albums, you should do yourself a favor and go listen to it. He's one of a kind to me, really, and this album is no exception. It's really indescribable how it sounds.
Stereosity, New Life Will Grow. A band whose profile description proudly proclaims that math rock isn't dead, has a lot to live up to. But thankfully, this is just the right brand of twinkly guitar for me. Invigorating, joyful, Stereosity's debut perfectly balances the catchy, emphatic songwriting of emo and the more technical headassery that held a lot of these bands from appealing to anybody without riff autism. RIP TTNG.
Billy Woods, Gollywog. I love myself an immersive album, and this one for sure is. Listening to this one on a walk in one of the more abandoned parts of Riga, I really felt the atmosphere of the album. It really is a horror rap album, especially when a track like Waterproof Mascara samples a crying woman for its beat. The eerie and immersive production with Billy's introspective and even political lyrics on this album make it for sure one of the most memorable projects of the year.
Rave On. The good, the bad, the dollar menu. In an alternate universe where he won the beef with Joey Badass, this album might have gotten the amount of attention it deserves. While the form of Rave On's debut isn't anything too outside of the box for a West Coast TDE signee, what he excels at are the utterly honest, human portrayals of poverty and generational trauma. One of the most compelling everyman figures in rap this year.
Earl Sweatshirt, Live, Laugh, Love. Earl is probably my third favorite rapper of all time, so I was obviously very stoked for this album, but I was kind of scared because Voir Dire is probably my least favorite Earl album, and to me it showed like a sign of possible decline, but God, was I relieved when I heard it. Starting from Warriors vs Sacramento, this album just doesn't stop being such a feel-good listen, and in a way, it sounds like a proper conclusion to Earl's character arc. Really, it makes me so happy that the same person who wrote Solace, some rap song, I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside, is the same person who wrote this album. This is a perfect album for a Saturday morning or something. Like, Brad Pitt is my GOAT. Also, he's the GOAT of under 30-minute projects. I don't know, all of his projects are under 30 minutes except for this one.
Youngster Jack, Fever Brecht. I befriended a trance music producer on Discord and she sent me this album. I don't know what the fuck is happening. The sorry ass beats sound like cobbled together sound effects. His auto-tuned whining is never fucking on beat, and his ad-libs fly over the songs with reckless abandon. Listening to it genuinely feels like I'm having an episode, and it's low-key kinda good. I'm the problem, I know.
Where? Raw Blue. Shoegaze, 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 shoegaze. I just like Where a lot. Something about them being dreamy while being on the rougher side of shoegaze bands really tickles something in my brain and makes me want to listen to them more and more. All jokes aside, while technically this was released on Bandcamp on the Christmas Eve of 2024, it was only dropped everywhere else in 2025, hence why it's here. And I'm really glad it is. It's raw, it's blue, it's sad. That's all I need. I don't know what to tell you.
Weather Day. Man, I thought this album would change the world, and while it does have some of my favorite songs of the year like Angel, Tiara, and Meanie, which might just have the greatest riff since like Famous Prophets, Weather Day's lo-fi odyssey really suffers from bloat and a lack of sonic variety. At a certain point, every breakdown just started sounding the same to me. That being said, it's still a really solid emo album and has some of the best, most devastating writing I've heard all year.
Clips, let God sort them out. This shit got me looking up recipes, my guy. I think Push is one of the most skilled and technically gifted rappers like ever. It's one thing when you can rap about different things for 20 years and it still sounds interesting, and another when you can rap about pushing coke for 20 years and it sounds better and better each year. Malice, on the other hand, I was not familiar with your game, bro. The Ace Trumpets verse is probably my favorite verse of the year. Like, really, these guys just reunited out of nowhere and dropped the best rap album of the year, which, unlike everyone's expectations, starts with a truly touching and sincere intro, Birds Don't Sing, where each time you come back to the tape, you get blown away by Pharrell's production and a new bar you didn't pay attention to last time. The only reason why it isn't in the top 10 is because I wanted to give light to other, less known records, but all of the praise this record gets is more than deserved.
This is culturally inappropriate.
Open Mike Eagle, Neighborhood Gods Unlimited. Funnily enough, both of these albums came out on the same day. I tapped into Open Mike Eagle's music back when I couldn't really fully appreciate his brand of meditative, melodic, and mellow rap, but this album fully made me a fan. His soulful choruses accompany unique, nerdy stories with a demented sense of humor, being Clark Kent's co-worker, conspiracy theories at black barbershops, and having a broken phone, all of them executed with lyricism levels of a 20-year veteran at the game. He's also got a great YouTube channel where he talks about music and culture with a clarity few on this platform have. Goddamn, what can he do?
Danny Brown, Stardust. Maybe not the most fleshed out or complete record of all time, but damn, this is a fun listen. I love the idea of a 40-something-year-old Danny Brown coming from rehab and making an album which is essentially him and the Avengers of Chronically Online music as his first thing. This shit maybe was a little bit underwhelming because I thought it would be more conceptual in terms of the content, but this shit slaps. I love how diverse it is. It goes from an introspective intro in Book of Daniel to a pop anthem in Copycat to whatever 1999 is, to a house track in Lift Me Up, to Quadeca in his Insecure back in What You See, to another pop anthem with the underscores and Baby, to end with Serious Last Production. This shit is peak, man. I don't know where the hate is from. Like, go listen to it now. Danny Brown, you're my GOAT. This year, I properly got into Bedcover. I listened to their 2023 album right before Yuki released, so for me, the start of the summer was one good Bedcover phase. Yuki is very distinctly a jazz rock record. Unlike Uma, their last album, Yuki steps aside from Bedcover's usual art rock direction to pursue a more contained, even fluid record, filled with sax solos, emotional pianos, and longer runtimes. Personally, I love me some jazz rock. King Krul and his jazz-influenced sound has become one of my favorites of all time, and last year my favorite album of the year was The New Sound by Jordy Grieve. So, while The New Sound is a very extravagant and a very eccentric entry into the genre, Yuki is quite the opposite to it. Nevertheless, I still like it. While it is so different to other works of Bedcover, it still keeps the band's identity and can be very touching and moving even without understanding the lyrics. Track 6 is an example of that, a very, very beautiful song that reminds me of a sincere lullaby and brings me to shivers every single time I listen to it. It doesn't mean that the album can't be on the faster side of jazz rock either. Track 3 is an example of a faster track, which would sound perfect in a concert setting. Overall, just a very solid album, which at 38 minutes of runtime goes through completely different places while keeping the band's and the album's identity in place.
October Country, my initial album of the year, following this far down our list, just shows how stacked this year's music truly was. I still love it and can talk about bangers like Stocks, Highway Hex, Hovel, and Kevlar all day, but for a thorough breakdown of why this album slaps, not only because it has great songs, not only because it's a glorious return of a beloved Haunted Mountain member, but also because of its nuanced and devastating treatise on nostalgia, memories, and going back to what's no longer there, go watch my Ghost Mountain video for Halloween. I'm hopeful my GOAT will have another great year in 2026.
To put it simply, Racing Mount Pleasant from the album Racing Mount Pleasant is one of my favorite songs this year. Okay, enough of this. After changing the name from Kingfisher, Racing Mount Pleasant have released their sophomore album, titled after the band's name. While listening to the record, the first things that you notice are the obvious stylistic similarities with Black Country New Road. In the ephemeral era of Isaac Wood, the band has pioneered the fusion of art rock and chamber pop, which is exactly the essence of the record. This is where the record's main criticism from the public comes, as this obvious similarity to old BCNR causes people to write Racing Mount Pleasant off as derivative and uninteresting. This is where I disagree, however. Yes, the similarity is obvious, however, the beauty is in the details. I think for me, the key difference between the two is how both albums convey their emotional essence. While Ants From Up There relies heavily on Isaac's unique singing, Racing Mount Pleasant is so fucking good at supporting the lyrics with the instrumentation. Listen to, for example, Outlast. It doesn't need the lyrics to sound emotional. The fast drums, the changing pace of the song, the trumpets, and finally the guitar solo, which sends me back to where. My point is, you would have never heard this on a BCNR record. To me, it feels like Racing Mount Pleasant uses a different array of sounds, and because some of the sounds are present in Ants From Up There, people usually instantly write it off as derivative. In general, the record stays in one style and sounds like a continuous, coherent, and a very emotional album, which conveys its sentimental direction in different ways. The metal, bittersweet U tracks, the minimalistic and melancholic Seaburn, the epic title track, which shifts several times through its runtime. All of them make Racing Mount Pleasant one of my favorite albums this year, because despite the differences, they all follow the same direction of the album, compiling probably one of the most stacked tracklists of the year and a very strong spin on the genre, which, once again, I don't think is derivative of BCNR.
I'm sure I'm not breaking any new ground by saying this, but Getting Killed is the most exciting jukebox of classic and contemporary rock music I have heard in such a long time. Texas, Trinidad, Islands of Men, Cobra, Long Island City, Here I Come, and so many other highlights blitz through with an infectious energy that almost lets you forget just how ornate and well crafted all of the instrumentation is. But what ties this album together is undeniably the frontman, Cameron Winter. what the fuck do you have to do to sing like this? He's got the long, low draws of Julian Casablancas, but instead of the cool, free-spiritedness of the strokes, bro is flailing, falsettoing and cracking his way through a delivery that's somewhere between Carsey Headrest DIY sensibilities, the vulnerability of classic blues, and deep country twang. He sounds like a 60s singer who's been cryogenically frozen and let out in the current day to experience a situationship. The rise of Geese this year both gave me immense hope and dread for the future. Here was this incredible New York jam band, speaking to a whole generation with their youthful energy and proving that music can bring people together unlike anything else. On the other hand, like everything in the world now, the positive reception of Geese also became irony poisoned immediately, and everybody still not tired of the performative male trend just made this band's fanbase their new target. And what does it say about our culture that the most exciting things to come out of the music industry is once again a throwback? A reminder of the free-spirited, trashy indie rock of the 2000s and the classic rock of Led Zeppelin and television. Are we cooked? I don't know, but that Cocaine song sure is good. So when it all ends, we'll at least be nicely distracted.
This one is special, man. As we all know, the UK underground completely took over the music discourse in 2025. First, Fake Mink, after dropping with Echo, got co-signed by literally everybody for his catchy and fast-paced songs. After that, Fang got his flowers for his nostalgic and youthful sound, characterized by, you know what? Watch Nate's video if you want to know why Fang is good and what his appeal is. And lastly, SD Kid completely broke the internet, growing to over 15 million monthly listeners with his Scouse accent and catchy, short, hard-hitting songs, many of which obviously blew up on TikTok. Yes, these people got it is what I'm saying. But while all of these guys were getting massive praise from literally everybody, I think the best representative of the UK underground scene got overlooked by many. I'm talking about Jim Legacy and his mixtape Black British Music 2025. This is one of my most replayed albums all year, and frankly, it had to grow on me a little before it became one of my favorites. At first, I listened to it and it only really hit me with a couple of songs, but I kept spinning it, and as time went on, I noticed a lot of little details which make me fall in love with this record even to this day. For instance, the little phrases from the announcer which make the record fun and more immersive. Speaking of immersiveness, the mixtape's name, cover art, and sound are a perfect match, each one working off each other, thus making the world building of the record much stronger. The cover resembles the Pan-African flag, with black, red, and earthy green being the predominant colors of both. The cover also self-references the content of the record through David Bowie's lightning on Jim's face. The visual aspect of the mixtape is one of the reasons why it is so authentic. However, its authenticity also comes through sound. Both instrumentally and lyrically, it references David Bowie, UK grime, football, spots in London, and it doesn't sound forced or anything like that. No, it sounds very true to Jim.
Also, to interject, he references wrestling, which also fits because British wrestling is one of the biggest scenes of independent wrestling in the world.
Besides a wide array of culturally important to British youth references, Jim also manages to fit in a variety of genres onto the tape. Afrobeats, pop rap, jerk, even pop rock. The record seamlessly flows through different sounds while staying within the same concept of this being the soundtrack of the Black British youth. More than that, in his very short songs, he does all of those references and writes funny and catchy bars, but also manages to cover his internal struggles and personal trauma of the past on tracks like Issues of Trust, Dexter's Phone Call, or even the intro, Context, making this mixtape versatile both lyrically and sonically. And while this thing is so all-encompassing and conceptual, it is also catchy as fuck. Samples on Stick, Father, I Just Banged This Snooze in Canada Water, and the new David Bowie are so well flipped and make the songs extremely memorable because of how unique the flips are. SOS and Sun are crazy summer anthems. 06 Wayne Rooney is super nostalgic and brings me back to like old FIFA or something, and the music video for it really nailed how the song sounds. Father's music video is also crazy, by the way. I love the director of both, and I might make a video about him. He's incredible. He also made the Black and Tan music video. It's really good. The lyrics on these songs are also so fucking funny. Make that money do a backflip, selling Charlie to the brats. On the block, I was listening to Mitski in the West End and I'm balling like I'm Oscar. Also, what the fuck do you mean by she a creamer, Phoebe? Literally, I can talk about this album for hours. It covers so many moods and it's just so catchy. Like, go listen to it now if you haven't, you're stupid.
While people like Jim from the UK underground are making waves in pop culture and will probably define this generation, in my eyes, no artist truly embodies the spirit of our time better than Lucy Bedrock right now. Being chronically online and overstimulated, the postmodern mood boarding of sounds, eras, and imagery, as well as the fluidity of identity and expression, all of it is distilled into his music, including his debut on Music mixtape. From the opening Speakers Never Learn, this fucking thing never lets up. 2025 has been the year where rage truly stopped giving a fuck and everyone just started making the most fried shit possible. And while it falls into that trend generally, Music stands out with its far more apparent electronic influence, inspired samples, and most of all, its sheer musicality. If you've ever heard How to Pretend or Sisterhood, you know Lucy's a soft soul at heart and a melodic mastermind, which shines through even when he's trying to do more quote-unquote traditional rap songs like 2010 Justin Bieber, I Am Impossible, and the title track. Fucking hell, even Oija, which is just a more distorted live leak, still has more memorable melodies and flows than Kent Carson. When he does crank up that dance and electronic influence on songs like G6 Anthem and Fenty Face though, they end up being some of the hypest shit I've heard this year. And the slower, softer songs like Karamia, Cat's Eye, Yes You May simply carry me to a higher plane of existence. Lucy can really do it all, and do it all his way. How the fuck is he the same age as me? I'm gonna kill myself!
I'm still unaware of Paranormal's music. Somehow, I have not yet gotten to listen to his discography. However, this is a step towards it. Huramik is a different stage name of a famous Korean shoegaze musician Paranormal. Under this alias, he has released 2 albums this year, one of which, Seeking Darkness, lands this high on our list of best albums for a very good reason. Seeking Darkness is a really hard-hitting and entertaining entry into the genre of post-rock from Paranormal. This album is an hour long with only 5 tracks, and this shit really slaps. The first part consumes the listener with Huramik's vocals and a long lead-in, followed by one of the craziest instrumental progressions of the year, which at some points sounds like a full-on metal song. Part 2 continues more groany but mixes in traditional Korean sounds, which really reminded me of The Long Season by Fishmans, and starting from part 3, I have paid attention to how great the drums are on this thing. Considering that he hasn't even played them that long ago, to give such an impressive performance as on part 4 is just like insanity. Seriously, on that song the drums are the main exhibit, setting the song's rhythm and sounding even more sharp than all of the guitars. Huramik also uses his vocals in some way like an instrument. Because of how distorted they are, and probably because I don't know Korean, on tracks 4 and 5, they really help the record's noisy nature seem a little smoother. As a post-rock enjoyer, I was really blown away by this thing. Even though, after I have just listened to Pain to Power by Maruja, I wouldn't think I'd encountered something better from the genre this year.
Speaking of Paranormal, you never truly feel as seen as discovering that an artist had put out your thoughts, your fears, your soul into a work in the way you always envisioned, almost as if the things you wanted to say were waiting right there, just begging for you to materialize it. That's what I felt watching Junji Iwai's Swallowtail Butterfly, or listening to Komomi by Nujabes, and what digicore artist Wikipedia felt when she heard Paranormal's 2021 album, See the Next Part of the Dream. When I figured out that all the songs were done digitally, it clicked for me that the side of music I thought was impossible for someone like me to create has been sitting there all this time. So she pivoted, took her DIY rap producer skill set to make wistful rock music on her 2024 album For the Rest of Your Life, blowing everyone away and retiring the name to Wikipedia in the process. Now she creates under Key vs. Locket, and her mix of Midwest emo and math rock does to me what Paranormal did to her. I'm not a good singer, I don't know shit about fuck when it comes to music production or music theory, but what I do have is 10 plus years of stagnant guitar experience and a lot of emo things to scream out. The first time hearing I Felt Like a Sketch, KVL's debut album, was a genuinely eye-opening experience. The first song had me hooked, by the third song Rifle I was off my seat, and by the last song I felt like crying. Here was this completely unknown to me artist, not only creating my exact nostalgic, melancholic vibe, but also writing some of the sharpest songs I've ever heard in this genre completely on her own, with only a DAW and guitar by her side. In my heart of hearts, I know that like her transition into rock music, the learning process will be grueling, but this album sparked the realization that I can never let go. I want to write emphatic, gut-wrenchingly catchy riffs like that. I want to build songs into these emotional, cathartic bursts of sound that capture you. I want to make art that good. I can't promise to reach the levels of these great artists, but the torch of inspiration has been passed, and that's what it's all about. Kotaka now is the type of artist to get 2-hour extensive breakdowns on his new album a week after it drops, and I couldn't be happier. Every album, he continues to reinvent himself as one of the most inspiring artists of our generation. But it is also low-key anger-inducing how good he is. Like, bro, do you really have to be a great director, musician, and look hot as fuck doing it? Leave us some crumbs, man!
Nate put me on Quedeca this year, and holy shit, he was not wrong about this man. When I first heard Vanisher, I was on a walk through a forest onto a beach, staring at the blue sky and the calm evening water of the Bay of Riga. Even without watching the album movie, the image that first experience built in my head matched the visuals pretty well. This is when I realized how great of a job Quedeca has done at immersing you into his imaginary world with sound only. Quad did. I can't. The long ambient interludes make you feel like you're en route to some landmark, almost as if you're living through a recap of a journey between two locations. The changes in the pace, in the rhythm, and the instrumentation on these songs feel like different states of waters you, as a sailor, are traveling through. Really, put on the first track and think about it. The more saturated parts with heavier drums sound like a rougher sail with the waves hitting you, and at the end of it, it sounds like a calm sail. I could really see an image of me in the water on a boat. It makes me feel like I'm living through a story, not just because Quedeca told it through his lyrical narrative, but because he actually makes me live through the ambience of the journey. This level of immersive storytelling is present everywhere on the record across an incredible variety of sounds. The calming "That's Why" sounds like a sunset on the water. Monday sounds like a sailor reflecting on his life and relationships with people. And Foregone sounds like a heartfelt final love letter before a possibly deadly sail. On the other side of the spectrum, Bakunawa has the eerie atmosphere of a boss fight with Danny Brown playing a fucking dragon, which at least isn't carbon monoxide. Casper, with its ending, sounds so vital yet enigmatic, reminding me of that one scene from Death Stranding. And Thunder is one of the craziest, boldest songs of the year. It is eerie but very dynamic, and sometimes even dancey. It reminds me of The Lighthouse. Like, out of all of the tracks, it sounds the most black and white for some reason. Here I admit that Quad really nailed the visual. And on top of all of this is probably my favorite song of the year at a time like this. Holy shit. I think this is a pinnacle of Quad's career in terms of production so far. The amount of layers on this song, which form this weird, eerie soundscape, which almost never stops. The song always changes. A wall of sound comes onto you like it's a really strong wave, and then this wave changes into something triumphant and beautiful with the trumpets and strings and Quad's vocals and lyrics, which make it sound like the character whose shoes we're fitting into has come to a realization that he cannot die after all of the sailing he has done. It is so big. I could talk about this song for an hour. It is literally that good. Oh my god. Thank you, Quad.
If Haunt You conveyed a claustrophobic, angsty, and desperate isolation, the sailor from Vanisher doesn't treat isolation as an entirely bad thing, even if he intuitively realizes that it might be. In the album's first half, the whimsical, earnest songs almost feel liberating, and the various influences it pulls from just makes the journey feel so full of possibilities. But that only makes the contrast to the second half's cosmic horror that much more potent. As the sailor's paranoia rises, and the nature he's traversing becomes more and more unpredictable, he encounters something so powerful, so strange, it eludes his comprehension. A Filipino person, and it swallows him whole. When he's tattered, broken, and finally succumbs to the horizon in the last song, did he find what he was searching for? Was his isolation the reason for his downfall? Or was a horizon scraper like him always going to end up this way? You decide. 2 for 2 when it comes to profound, idiosyncratic, and cinematic stories told in music form. Kwanka is truly on a generational run. Speaking of generational runs, Jane Remover has been making other musicians uninstall FL Studio since 2021. Her third album, Revenge Seekers, is no different. A brazen, distorted fusion of digicore, dance, hyperpop, and so much more that seems determined to run the shit to the fucking ground.
2025 defines Jane as someone who moves the soundscape of whatever genre she touches, and as somebody who is worthy of the title of a generational talent. At the start of the year, they, under the alias of Venturing, dropped Ghost Holding, a successor of Jane's guitar-centric sound from Sessa's Designated. Then, they dropped Revenge Seekers, the catchiest and the boldest album of the year, at least for me. Then, dropped Indie Rock, only on SoundCloud, revived her Daria core alias Leroy, and drop the Hard EP, which will either be the introduction to a long-awaited pop album or the last thing we will ever hear from Jane and that lady. And she has yet to miss. Seriously, I love JPEG Mafia for putting me on. Jane was in my top 5 most listened artists for months on end this year, just because of Revenge Seekers. Unlike a lot of hyperpop and EDM adjacent projects, it manages to keep me engaged while never overwhelming me. Maybe it's because of how all the songs have something unique to them.
From the multi-phase experimental skin building into a drop which genuinely feels like the end of the world, the low bitrate medieval chimes of JR JR JR, or the molten lava synth stabs on Turn Up or Die, every song instantly stands out from the rest, despite what the consistently maximal production may suggest. But what completes this album is Jane herself, whose knack for catchy hooks and melodies holds all of this chaos together. Every refrain she repeats sticks in your head, and the amount of quotables is insane. Please God save me, I'm so turned right now. Jesus never had it with a freak bitch. Prophesy like a leg man. Dear God, put a curse on those who wronged me. For an album that sounds like it's collapsing and burning all the time, it sure makes it so that people want to sing along to the destruction.
I love how every song is filled with little forward-thinking details. The Pokemon sound effects, the Shinji scream and Dream Flasher, the Fortnite ping, the glass breaking effect everywhere. People say that Two Hollis is a genius for using the Minecraft firework effect in his song. Well, Jane is like 20 miles ahead of him in terms of that. Another thing which I think helps this record not tire you with all of the little ADHD details is the progression of this thing. The album slows down a couple times throughout its runtime before blowing up into this hard-hitting, catchy firework of sounds. A perfect example of that is Star People outro or the first half of Fade Outs. These songs quiet down like a little break in the mosh pit when the artist is talking to the audience before the DJ smashes the play button again. Yes, I'm really jealous of Nate, who has been able to mosh to it this year, and you know what's crazier than all of this? Is that it's not even her best album.
Revenge Seekers is one of those rare records that sucks you into a vortex of itself and makes you feel like no other music even exists. In sharp contrast to Kodaka Sail for the Meaning of Life, which gently invites you into the world it creates, Jane's World is addicting precisely because it is actively abrasive, calling out one explosive odyssey after another that leaves you in awe. It's the crash out of a lifetime, and we can't look away from it. While it isn't the album that resonated with us the most, it was the album we got the most excited over, and that feels appropriate for our top spot. As long as we keep experiencing invigorating and boundary-pushing art like this, we at bliss.wav will keep celebrating new music.
If my grave is kept clean, full circle again.
As Janet talked about in our New Year's update video, the bliss.wav channel is, as of now, permanently demonetized by YouTube's new AI detectors for a genuinely bullshit reason. More details in the video and the thread I made on social media. While this does suck on so many levels, namely having a significantly harder time at earning a living out of the videos we love to make, this also opens up an opportunity for us to be truly independent and people funded. That's right, we're launching the bliss.wav Patreon, the best way to support our videos and all of our creative endeavors. At a time where thoughtful music discussion is either paywalled like Pitchfork, predicated on stupid meme accounts like YoungStarBeam or just RageBait, we want to create fun, accessible videos that make you think about your favorite songs more deeply. By pledging, you help these videos continue existing in their best form. If you haven't noticed, I use a lot more copyrighted music in this end of your video because I no longer have to avoid copyright claims. And in turn, you get your name in the credits, our eternal gratitude, and a special feature, the bi-monthly Bliss magazine. We both love the aesthetic of old magazines and the feeling of flipping through a world passionately curated and designed by actual people instead of algorithms. And through this magazine, we wish to bring back some of that sense of humanity in this AI-ridden dystopia. Every 2 weeks, me and Jenya take turns to curate album reviews, song reviews, artist spotlights, genre deep dives, and random interesting write-ups about music, media, and the world as a whole. If that sounds like something you're interested in, the first issue is or is very close to dropping on the Patreon, available to all tiers. If you pledge now, you can join the early bird tier and receive a discount, as well as a lifetime mention in our videos like these two very cool people, Spooklex and Tiago. Thank you for your support, and see you very soon.